Hey everybody, welcome to the Leader Lab. This is Leadership Shorts, quick thoughts to help you level up your leadership. My name is Chad Wright. I am the founder of Forward Partners, and I'm joined as always by my partner in podcasting, Emily Grace Deal. Emily Grace Deal, we're not on NPR despite my joke I made before the camera started rolling.
Right before we start rolling,
I really
every
do.
time.
I know. I would like to say it's unintentional.
If you're wondering why I'm always losing my mind at the beginning of every episode, it's Chad's fault.
I have a role to play. I'm sorry. What are we talking about today, Emily Grace Deal?
So we created a cool way of monitoring how intense our weeks are.
Yes.
Helps keep us from burning out and stacking intense weeks back to back.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be helpful to share that system with people.
So yeah, we kind of had to come up with this, and we're still experimenting with it. We're still messing with it, and we had to come up with this because last year was the busiest year we've ever had. Especially the last half of the year, man, it just exploded. Mm-hmm. And the first half of this year is already insane. I mean, we're recording this in January. I think we're booked months out. And so we have more happening this year than we've ever had. But the reality is, if in this process, I burn out, you burn out, Emily burns out, John burns out, anybody involved in our production or anything we do burns out, that is not a win. That is it's not a path to long-term success.
Right.
And so we have to figure out, how do we set a rhythm very intentionally that we can still do a lot and not burn out? And so the way we started to think about this was in two ways. One, we wanted to be able to understand how intense are our weeks. So we have 3 different types of weeks, and this is how we rate them. We start with the breathe out week, and that's 0 to 3 points. Breathe out weeks are like, we got some meetings, we got a couple things we got to do, we got some internal work within the company, but we're not doing events, we're not doing like a lot of real intense coaching days.
Not a lot of traveling.
Not a lot of retreats. It's just we get to breathe out a little and do the work that we're probably a little bit behind on and get caught up. It's kind of one of those catch-up weeks, both I think physically and mentally, and then also in terms of productivity.
Right.
Then we have intense weeks. These are 4 to 7 points, and these are ones where we're probably doing a couple events in a week. We're probably doing a couple different client-facing things that, honestly, there's my time being there that day to do it. There's a ton of prep work that goes into those.
Right.
You know, you guys are prepping behind the scenes to make sure we actually have the things we need to be successful there.
Right.
Then there's very intense weeks. This is 8+ points. Very intense weeks are tough. We're in the middle of a very intense week, I think. We'll look at the scoring system. I'm pretty sure we are. And I think next week will be a very intense week as well. And so the very intense weeks, what we learn, and part of the reason we set this up is we can only do so many very intense weeks in a row before things start to break. And specifically, we start to break. So a very intense week, if we have more than 2 of those in a row, and I think that's what our rule is we can't have more than 2 in a row.
Right.
If you have 2 very intense weeks in a row, you have to have a breathe out week for week 3.
Right.
And I don't know that we're ever going to be perfect about this, but if we can try to be more intentional, we're going to land in a better place than if there's 0 intention whatsoever.
Right. Well, and it gives us a lot of restraint, right? Because then when you're scheduling things out, it's like, oh, there are gaps here.
Exactly.
But we know that we can't just fill because the space is available.
Yes.
We have to put a little wiggle room.
Absolutely. And Emily, who brings the vibes, also is in charge of every single thing that happens. She's in charge of the calendar. When is it going to happen? And we're getting more and more requests that are filling up that calendar. And so we have to have that view of, oh, we had 2 very intense weeks in a row. This has to be a breathe out week, and we're at our limit already. Everything else gets pushed to another week or 2.
Right.
So this system, while it also prevents burnout, it requires patience. We have to be okay saying, hey, yes, we would love to talk to you about that thing in a week, in 2 weeks, whatever it is.
Right.
So that's kind of how we think about it. Those breathe out weeks to rest a little, intense weeks where we're doing a lot of work, and very intense weeks that are just a lot.
Right. So then the points work by we put number values on events that we kind of looked at whatever we normally do.
Yeah.
So then we put
so
number
tell us
values
about
on
those.
that. So we had a full day of coaching for you that counts as 1 point.
Yep.
And then a full day retreat, so more people, more interaction.
Yes.
Then that's 2 points.
Yep.
And then we also included travel because you can't forget that has to happen.
This is honestly, like, I don't know that I do a lot of smart things. This was actually a really smart inclusion because travel, as we're traveling more, I'm just learning how draining it is.
Right.
It is exhausting when you're on the road and coming back. And
and then you feel like you have to get things done, so you're still trying to work.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So then we kind of counted that into, so driving outside of Austin, we counted that as 2 points. Flying that much further, then that counts as 3 points.
Yep.
And then conferences and speaking, we counted that as 2 points.
Yep.
Recording podcasts like today. 2 points. And then internal development and meetings, that's 1 point.
That's just 1 point. So we'll use this week as an example. Monday was a full day of development, just internally. We worked together. That's 1 point. Tuesday and Wednesday were both full days of coaching. Each one of those days is 1 point. So we're at 3 points already. Then we get to today, which is recording all day. So that's 2 points. So now we're at 5. And then we have tomorrow a full day retreat. That's another 2 points. Thankfully, it's close. It's not very far away.
Right.
It's another 2 points. So that's a 7-point week. That's an intense week. And that's on that line between intense and very intense.
Right.
Next week's another example. We have 1 point Monday. And then I have travel in there. So that's 2 points, 2 points on Tuesday, 2 points Wednesday, 2 points Thursday, 2 points Friday. So that's, I don't even know how many points.
Math.
I'm so bad at math.
It's math.
People listening to this, you can't see me holding my fingers up and using them to count, but I am. I'll be honest with you. If you ever want to see us film this show, go to YouTube. Search for @ForwardPartner. You'll find us. All the shenanigans, you'll get to see them live and in Technicolor. So we've got an intense week this week. We've got a very intense week next week. The next week really needs to be a breathe out week. Right. We need a chance to just breathe, get caught up on little things. Because I find during the really intense and very intense weeks, a lot of stuff goes by the wayside for me.
Right, a lot of admin
email,
things.
a lot of sending out proposals and invoices and email, and just stuff that you don't have time in the moment to moment between meetings and between things happening.
Right.
And so my guess is other people experience something very similar where they have these very, very intense weeks. And if we just say yes to everything, you're going to have a lot of those in a row. And you can only have so many of those before you break. So while this is the system we've crafted, I think for most people, if we can be intentional about our rhythms of work and not just automatically say yes things, create a system, what it causes is for us to have a conversation about it. Where we're not just on autopilot, just yes, 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 commit, commit, commit. It is, do we want to say yes?
Well, I think because it's important, we talk about these things and then we have to apply them to ourselves too, right? We're not saying this stuff as if it's like this cool thing. You do it.
No, this is something we're absolutely in the middle of using.
We have to keep ourselves from not burning out too. So I think to be really intentional and make those choices, we have to, we find cool. You make cool frameworks that we are like, yes, that's super smart.
I think we as a team make really cool frameworks. Yes. We should be proud of that. So I think it's something that applies to everybody, whether you're in our business or in a different business. The whole point of this is create some kind of way of thinking about how hard are we working. Because I think if you thought about it in terms of sprinting or running a marathon, right? Often people sprint when actually they're running a marathon. And if they knew that, they would slow down a little bit. But because they don't know that, they're just sprinting all the time. And we end up with that big boulder that we can't seem to put down. So, so leaders, let's talk next steps. I just want you to think through this exercise of what intentional rhythms do you need to create for your work? Are there intentional rhythms? Are there busier times? Are there slower times? And can you be hyper intentional about how that works? Because this is how we're going week to week, but there's also seasonal rhythms, right? There's times when our business is just slower and we're going to be more intentional about rest in those times. There's times it's busier and we know this is our intense time. We gotta save up some energy and be ready for this piece. And this is part of how we're doing this, is making sure that as we go through the year, we're not just letting demand dictate our own rhythms, and our own health is what it's tied to. And that's ultimately what this is about, is can we continue long-term to show up as healthy leaders? And you are on exactly the same journey. And if you're not intentional about your rhythms, ultimately you're going to struggle to show up as a healthy leader at some point. So I would be fascinated to see what your system looks like for intentional rhythms. Create something like that, implement it, talk about it with your team, see if it doesn't make a difference for you. If people want to send us their systems and tell us how they handle this kind of thing, where do they send that to?
lab@forwardpartner.net.
lab@forwardpartners.net. If they want to find us online, where we are producing leadership content all over the place, where do they find that?
At Forward Partner.
At Forward Partner. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Thank you so much for hosting with me. John, Porchlight Productions Vineyard, thank you for producing. Other Emily, thank you for bringing the vibes. Viewers, listeners, watchers, readers, whatever you want to call yourselves. I don't know why readers. Who knows? I feel like I've made that mistake before. Anyway, folks seeing and or hearing my voice, thank you guys. We love you. We genuinely do. We can't believe we get to do this for a living. Y'all make all the difference in the world. Please share this with fellow leaders, and we will see you next time right here in the Leader Lab for Leadership Shorts.